2 wins against one of the worst teams in baseball history, and you're excited.
Some would say they might have a better offense than the Jays got.
Who said that?
Some would say. Not me, but.
It is Blair and Barker for Monday. Kevin, bigger surprise to you. One, Saturday's performance, 7-0 win over the Athletics, was Kevin Gausman's first career shutout?
Yep.
Or the fact that as of this moment, 19 of Major League Baseball's 30 teams are under 500. 19 are under 500. The Jays are 1 game under 500 after taking 2 of 3. They're only 2 out in the wild card. There's some really, really bad baseball teams.
Yeah, I think it's B. I don't think it's Kevin. I think Kevin would have done this already this season if, he would have started out healthy, had a full spring training, and the velocity would have maintained, and he wouldn't have had to force that. He's been trying to force that, and, he's scoreboard watching a ton. When you don't have to do that and you can just be free and easy and, think about making some mechanical changes, sounds like he's, stepping and landing in a little different spot, which would, just keep everything in line and enable him to finish his pitches the way he wants to finish them and have the split finger looking the way it's supposed to be looking and throw enough sliders to keep some righties off balance. So, yeah, when you face a team that you can add and subtract against, don't have to always be perfect against, this is what happens. The 19 teams being under 500, there's some bad teams, Jeff. We watch a ton of baseball, and it's rare that we see the complete team, like the one that just don't beat themselves a lot. And there's a ton of those. You can throw the Jays in there. You can throw a bunch of American League teams in there. You can throw a plethora of National League teams in there.
Wow.
The National League's just not real good. So, yeah, that part of it doesn't surprise me. If you watch baseball on an everyday basis, you understand why a lot of those teams are under 500.
But here's the thing. There are so many good young players right now. There are so many. I think we're in an era where baseball players are more talented than they've ever been. And as I'm looking at this, let's just run through the standings for folks, just so kind of get an idea of what we're talking about. The American League East, the Yankees are 46-21, Baltimore's 42-22. Boston's 33-33, Toronto's 32-33, Tampa Bay is 31-34. Toronto's 2 out of the wild card. In the Central, Cleveland 42-22. Hands up if you saw that coming. Kansas City 39-27. Keep your hand up if you saw that coming. Minnesota 34-31. Detroit 32-31. Chicago 17-49.
Wow.
In the West, the Seattle Mariners, they're 7 games over. Kevin, the Texas Rangers are 3 under in second place.
Yeah.
They're farther out of the wild card than the Jays.
Well, it's hard to repeat.
Houston 30-36, 4.5 out. Oakland 26-41, 9 back.
That's a shocker.
The Angels 25-40, 9 back. But this is what we talked about. The National League. The division races are basically over. National League East, the Phillies are 45-20. They're 25 games over 500. They're 9 games ahead of the Braves, who are 35-28. Washington 30-35. The Mets 28-36. Miami 22-43. Go to the Central. Tonight the Jays will play the Brewers. It'll be an 8:10 first pitch on Sportsnet. Barker and Blair will have Blue Jays talk following the game. Milwaukee's running away with this thing. Wow. They're 38-27. They're 6.5 up on the Cubs, who are 32-24. Cincinnati's 32-34.
For that good manager.
There you go. The St. Louis Cardinals 31-33 and Pittsburgh 31-34. The Dodgers, they're 8 up on the Padres. The Dodgers are 41-26. Everybody else in that division is below 500. Look, I understand. I think we thought going into the year, Orioles, Phillies, Yankees, Dodgers. I think we thought there was going to be a big gap between them. I'm going to put the Braves in there too.
Yep.
Yeah, I think we thought that there would be a real gap. No, I didn't. I didn't think the Astros were going to. Hell, I may have had them win in the West. So there you go.
I think I did too.
But I didn't think they were. I didn't think they were as good as Atlanta or Philly or the Yankees or Baltimore. I thought there was a big gap between the Dodgers. There was a big gap between them. But, this is
You think this
Some
is
bad
you
baseball.
think this is a big enough problem that Major League Baseball would have to take a giant look at this and wonder why
Can't do anything
and
about
adjust?
it. Can't do anything about it.
You can't.
No. I mean, I don't think you can do anything about it.
Salary cap. Put a floor.
No, because, well, first of all, you're going to have to get the players to agree with that.
Ain't happening.
Secondly, that isn't going to happen. Your chance to do it isn't until the next CBA.
Yep.
It's not going to happen. Salary. What difference is salary cap going to make?
That's a good. I mean, I would
Cleveland's
think
leading.
it's more about the floor. I would think than the cap. The
Cleveland's
top
leading
end
the
part of it.
Central.
Yeah.
Kansas City second in the Central. Minnesota's third. I mean, Seattle, they're leading the West over Texas and Houston. The Phillies, they got a big payroll. The Braves have a big payroll. Milwaukee, I mean, the Dodgers have a huge payroll.
Mm-hmm.
But, you look in the East, the Orioles' payroll is not as big as the Jays. They're in second. I don't think it's got anything to do with the salary cap. I mean, I think it's what I tend to think that maybe taking more games outside of your division and having your team play games in other divisions has had something to do with that.
I think scouting too has a little bit to do with that, right? It's very. I would think it's very hard to judge a young person like a 20-year-old.
Well, yeah.
How the hell you know what a 20-year-old's going to look like 2 years from now that could go on a contending team? I mean, they could either be really, really good or fall off a cliff. So I would think that part of it's really tough too. But I'm assuming that you take games away from your division and you're playing, all the good teams instead of some of the good teams. I'm assuming that.
I also think that the wild card system as it exists, it rewards. It prevents teams from being bold. Like, theoretically, let's look at the standings right now. Theoretically, the Jays, Tampa Bay, I would argue Houston, Texas, I would argue the Mets, I would argue the Reds, I would argue the Cardinals, I would argue the Giants, Padres, and Diamondbacks. They should probably be looking at making some moves.
You'd think so.
And, I mean, the Diamondbacks. Let's use them as an example. 4 games under 500, 1 game out in the wild card.
Yep.
You're the Pittsburgh Pirates. You want to rebuild? You're 7 out. You're only a half game back in the wild card.
Wow.
I mean,
that's crazy.
I mean, the teams that could probably just tear it down right now are Chicago. They've only got 1 player anybody wants. Los Angeles. Yeah, I mean, they've got a couple of guys. Oakland, 1 guy or 2 guys. Miami, who the hell knows? The Mets. The Mets should be looking at doing something. But other than that, and Colorado's got a couple of guys. But the Diamondbacks, Giants, Padres, Dodgers, there's a lot of teams who just have to play this out. Because you're the Jays. You're 1 good series away from being a game out of the wild card.
Absolutely.
Like,
That's
that
crazy.
is bizarre.
It is, too, especially the way I would think this is the way the front office is thinking, too. They're having the same conversation that me and you're having out loud, right? I mean, do we stand pat? Do we even have to go out and do something? What if Vladdy starts hitting more homers? What if Bo Bichette, we can hit him in the 2-hole finally? Like, when he was what if?
When he was asked last year at the end of the year about Ross Atkins' record as a GM, Mark Shapiro, the president and CEO, said, well, he's made the playoffs 3 times.
Yep.
So that's clearly the goal, is to make the playoffs.
It's not winning the World Series as much as it is just getting into the dance.
We will talk to Jon Morosi about that later on in the show. It is crazy.
Yeah. I think a lot of that, too, is you can't teach experience. I think there's so many young people in baseball now. You just can't teach it. Like, you can't. Guys, we're seeing it with the Jays. A lot of dudes don't know how to handle failure. Yeah. I was one of those. You had to learn how to do it. And when you don't, and you're trying to learn it on the fly against the best pitching in the world, good luck a lot of the time.
We've got tickets to give away to see the Jays and Guardians at the Rogers Center. We're going to take a look in the 5 o'clock hour at the Athletics Player Survey, which I guess it's good news in that the Blue Jays only have – the only Blue Jay mentioned in the most overrated player category was Alek Manoah.
Ouch.
The Jays had 1 player rated in the teammate you'd like to have for quote-unquote good vibes. That was Vladdy. But other than that, there's a whole lot of nothing. Like, the Jays weren't on the worst team list. They weren't in the best team list. There was 1 player voted for Toronto as being the team he would play for all things being equal, no state tax, like all that stuff. One player. I'm sorry, a couple of players voted for Toronto, but I mean, anyhow, it's an interesting survey.
Yeah.
We're going to go through it in the 5 o'clock hour. Lots of player feedback about things, different things, including, for example, should Major League Baseball shut down in the middle of the season so players could take part in the Olympics in Los Angeles? The majority of players don't want that, which I'm happy with that.
Well, there's no money
as well. But anyhow, so we have a lot to talk about. Jeff Levering is a Brewers TV and radio play-by-play voice. He'll join us at 4:35.
Brewers going to be a handful.
First of 3 games against the Brewers. Yep. Oh, and apparently they're bringing up their top pitching prospect tomorrow to face the Blue Jays. So there you go. I mean, Colin Ray gets the start tonight. It is expected to be Carlos Rodriguez. And why not? I mean, why not? If you're going to break somebody in against a major league team, there you go.
They see the same thing we see with the Jays lineup. Sometimes they just it looks like they, as an organization, have a tough time of simplifying it. See ball, hit ball, look for a fastball right down the middle. Like, a lot of the times against dudes you don't know, that's what you have to do. And it just seems like the Blue Jays either can't or are not willing to.
All right, so let's talk about the Blue Jays. Spencer Horwitz was called up by the team on Friday. Kevin Biggio was designated for assignment. We didn't really have a chance to talk about that on Friday. Kevin Biggio does have options left, but because of his service time, he has the right to turn down an assignment to the minors.
Mm-hmm.
And essentially the Jays will now try to put together a deal for him.
Yeah. Somebody will want him. Baseball IQ and
it's
not going to hurt your team. He's not.
He's not. And you know what? Look at some of the guys Oakland and Chicago were running out. Like somebody I said this. I am not the biggest Kevin Biggio fan, but I would have no problem having him on my team. I think he can do a lot for it. Quite frankly, I'd rather have him than Daniel Vogelbach. That's
no question.
Just me.
That's
too. Just me.
I'm in your camp.
But
you know what I thought of the first time I heard this? It's about time. I mean, about 6 months too late. I mean, what you waiting for? Your lineup hasn't been good for a while. It's time for change. You've seen enough of what you've seen from certain guys. It's time to start doing other things and trying to make a lineup better. Consistently, the lineup, you can get them out or they'll get themselves out. You don't have to face, Nolan Ryan every single day. Well, sometimes the lineup makes them look like Nolan Ryan. So it's about time. I'm a big fan of Kevin. The person and, the conversations, and I don't think he's going to hurt the team and the opportunities. I guess were very sporadic when it just come to him trying to be a big leaguer for the Toronto Blue Jays. And hopefully he'll move on and have other opportunities. And like a Santiago Espinal, maybe go to somewhere like the Reds and can sort of do the whatever he's going to turn out to be.
I was surprised how many people on social media weighed in saying that, the Jays never gave him a chance. Good Lord. Jays gave this guy a ton of chance.
I mean, they did for a little while at second base, and then they sort of moved off.
This is a guy that was when he came up, he was going to be the next Ben Zobrist. He was given an opportunity to be the next Ben Zobrist here. I don't think anybody ever looked at Kevin Biggio as an everyday player. I don't remember when he first came up here anybody saying that they thought he could play every day. It was pretty much said that he would be sort of a quasi-everyday player. A guy could play a little bit at second base, a little bit at third, a little bit at first. Could find himself in the lineup maybe 4 to 7 days, but in different positions.
Yeah, I think because of how everybody else is struggling offensively, the run prevention thing's been thrown out the window. The organization all of a sudden has pivoted.
Kevin, they started they started a dude at second base in 2 games of the Oakland Athletics series who is still learning to play the position. Earlier this year, they've taken a guy who won a Gold Glove at first base and put him at third base. We saw Dalton Varsho in right field on Saturday. Now, that's not a big – I mean, I'm convinced you could play Dalton Varsho at just about any position.
Any outfield. Absolutely.
Including catching, and you would get a decent performance from him.
Get crazy.
But what did you make of Spencer Horwitz?
Again, I've said this. They're 6 months too late for me. It's about time. The American League's about thumping. It's getting the foot down and getting it singing. And for whatever reason, a lot of guys are having trouble doing that. And, again, Spencer's not a guy that's going to do that. I mean, he had, less than 5 homers in the minor leagues, but he's a bat-the-ball guy. You can use the entire field, right? You put the best lineup. Now, all you need to know about how your lineup is he's hit first and second in the order of the 2 starts he's made in Oakland. I mean, that's all you need to know.
Yes.
Nothing against Spencer, but man alive. Like, they're in June, and this dude's just popping right in first or second in your lineup. Like, that again is all you need to know.
Schneider and Horwitz leading off on Saturday. I had to check to make sure they weren't going to Fort Myers or something like that when I saw that lineup.
Yeah, I mean, again, if you're the Springers of the world, like, again, like, he hit He hit 205 in May. He's 5 for 30 in June. I'm talking about George Springer. It's like you're getting. I mean, again, he's doing some things on the defensive side. Offensively, he's not doing anything. So yeah, is this enough? Probably not. Like, they need more. Like, they need guys like that. And then you flip the channel after the game on Sunday, and you just see
Oscar.
Oh, he's standing up on them tippy toes, boy. I mean, that's the way it's supposed to look. I mean, I've said this, and I'll continue to say it. Righties who can backspin balls the other way like he can don't grow on trees. And it's just, that's the thing, right? You close your eyes. That's what it's supposed to look like in the middle of the order. And you take about you try and win World Series run preventing. That's how you end up in last place. So, this is what I thought. And this is the moves. It's about time. And I'm sure if you're a Jays fan, you're thinking the same thing I'm thinking. I mean, it's about time that the front office starts doing something. Whoever that is, whether that's you got to put a dude wherever they ain't never played before, who cares? If they can hit a fastball, put them in the lineup, put them on the defensive side, let the rotation, at least the first 4 guys, figure it out. Now, Bowden Francis, that's a different thing, right? But everybody else seems to be doing exactly what they're supposed to be doing and giving them a chance to have the big inning, and that's all you can ask.
I mean, and I know you're a big believer in this, that your opponents will tell you what they think of you. I'm thinking of Friday's game, that 2-1 loss. Hogan Harris, 59 of his 91 pitches were fastballs.
Yeah.
They had a guy coming in relief who throws like 80% sliders, who was throwing fastballs.
Let me ask you, seen the Jays lineup long enough. Is it because they can't, or is it because the information they are getting stinks? What is it, you think?
I'm beginning to think that I'm in the they can't category. With some of these guys, I just don't. I don't think George Springer can turn around a fastball anymore.
Not consistently.
I don't think Kevin Kiermaier can consistently.
I mean, there
are more guys.
It is funny that the best hitters they've had in the last couple of years have been dudes that haven't been in their organization.
Right.
Like now it's IKF. Like, he takes it upon himself to adjust the lower half and starting to get all kinds of quadrants and situational hitting and doing what the situation dictates him to do because he can with his lower half. And he's not, that's that little thing where everybody's in love with that swing speed. Well, I looked it up. IKF has a 67.3 mile per hour swing speed. I can't even believe I'm saying that out loud. And right now, you could argue he's their best hitter. I mean, that's below league average. 67.3 miles an hour. That will tell you right now, short and quick, be good with your lower half. Don't use movements you don't have to use because dudes throw a bazillion. Consistently, you're probably not going to get the barrel where it needs to be. I mean, it's baseball 101. So
what?
I'm in your camp with the probably can't.
Yeah, I mean, obviously I can't.
And they're telling you probably too because of the way they're making out their defenses now.
I can't believe that. I can't believe Vladdy can't turn on a fastball.
No, he's done it. That's why he turned his season around.
Bichette.
I mean, it's not
obviously,
every guy.
I think Bichette can turn in a fastball. Jansen, it's just, again, your opponents are telling you what they think of you. And I don't see anybody. I just don't see anybody pitching like they're afraid to this lineup.
I mean, if you would have told me that Mason Miller, even though he's the hardest thrower in baseball, would have basically told Vladdy, "Here it is, see if you can hit it." I would have laughed at you.
Did you see his velo too? His velo wasn't exceptional.
I mean,
Mason Miller, he didn't have
102, Jeff.
But I mean, he didn't even try. He was throwing a lot of. He was throwing sliders.
He was after he threw his heater, though. I mean, that's Mason Miller's gonna. Yeah, I mean, if you're the Orioles and you want to win the World Series. and you want control, I mean, they're going to have to give up some things to get him. He'd be a good one. I mean, that's about as no-brainer if he's healthy as you're going to get. How are you going to hit 102 located left side?
What did you think of Spencer Horwitz? Early days, I know.
Yeah, I mean, it's short and quick. Again, he's not going to carry your team for a week at a time, but he's not going to hurt it. I think that's the thing is, right? He's better than what you had. I think that's where they're at, is do we have down there better than we've got? And if you do, call him up and stick him at second. Like that's, I think, where they're at. Now, again, it gets back to that first and second in the order is laughable. Again, I mean, you're in the conversation with the Jays trying to compete for a World Series and calling him up and just what he did and what he's not doing. And, you know, you're supposed to have your better hitters in your order,
I
top of the order.
Though, I got to say this, right? At this point.
Who cares where he hits?
At this point, it's about winning games somehow.
Absolutely.
It's about winning games somehow.
That's what I said.
And win enough games, and hopefully the general manager's forced into making a pretty significant move at the trade deadline. So really what they're doing right now, I mean, they're trying to keep their powder dry, and they're trying to win as many, they're trying to get back to 500, which they could tonight and get over. And, I mean, I've just accepted that. I think we need to guard against sort of looking at every game as a referendum and something long term. It's, can you win tonight? Can you win tomorrow?
Yeah.
That's what it's all about. And, like yesterday, beating Oakland 6-4, and all the bullpen, I don't care. I don't care. They won 6-4. That's all I care about.
Results.
Yeah. I have,
now, Bowden Francis, I'd like to see him throwing harder. Why is he not throwing harder? I mean, he's 6'5". I mean, listen. Come on, figure that out. Be better with that.
There were
bully people around with your fastball.
There were some concerns there, obviously. Trevor Richards wasn't great. That's going to happen. Chad Green, who gave it up on Friday, had a good outing on Sunday. This series just kind of reinforced in my mind how this bullpen is still, other than Jimmy Garcia, it's still kind of shaky.
Well, how they win is your starter goes 8 innings, your starter goes 9 innings, and then whoever spot starting goes to 4 innings.
Wanted to ask you about that. Do you have any problem with Chris Bassitt not coming out and pitching in the ninth?
No.
Okay.
I mean,
yeah, I'm just asking.
He's 35.
Kevin Gausman came out the next day and pitched 9.
He's not 35.
He's 33?
It's not 35.
32?
And sort of Kevin's been all over the place. Like you want Kevin to.
That's fair. I'm just asking. I'm just asking
Kevin,
why.
Don't throw a slider down the middle. Right. If you make a decent pitch with a breaking ball to a lefty who don't like spin, you're getting him out.
Yeah.
Like don't throw it down the middle. Like that's where they're at with this, right? Is Chad Green's better than that? Like again, he's had some issues with control and. He's got to be almost perfect with where the fastball is going to be on the elevated side and what he's trying to do with the slider. You tricking backdoor sliders, get after dudes. Like, this is sort of, where you're at. You got it lined up, and again, you get back to that, Jeff. They scored 1 run.
Yeah, I know. I'm just asking. I'm just asking.
I would think more about you got to put a little bit more pressure on Bowden Francis to throw harder and be better. Like, again, they're adding secondary stuff to him because they basically are telling him without telling him his fastball's not good enough. Start getting after dudes. Like it's a rare chance, Jeff, that you get second chances at the big league level to be starters. He's getting one because of what they don't have and who got hurt. Now you got to take the bull by the horns, and the bull by the horns for me is you got to make dudes uncomfortable. You're 6'5". I mean, it says you weigh 220. If you weigh 220, there's no traffic in Toronto. I don't believe that, but you got to get frisky. I mean, you got to do it with some authority with that fastball. He does that, they'll be fine. The other 4 guys are taking it and running with it.
Jeff Levering is the Milwaukee Brewers TV and radio play-by-play voice. The Jays and the Brewers will start a 3-game series tonight. 8:10 is the first pitch on Sportsnet and Sportsnet 590. The Fan, the Brewers, I think as my friend Mr. Barker calls them, they are the National League's version of the Tampa Bay Rays. They trade away all their pitchers. They see all their pitchers go in the IL, and they end up leading their division by 6 games in June. And don't forget, they don't have their all-world manager, Craig Counsell, who left them to take over.
He walks on water somewhere else.
Walks on water. Now walking on the waterfront in Chicago. Brewers don't care. Brewers just want to kick your ass.
How about that?
That's all they do. Jeff Levering's next. It's Blair and Barker on Sportsnet 590 The Fan and Sportsnet. All right, we'll have tickets to see the Jays and Guardians at the Rogers Center. We'll give that away later on in the show.
Huh.
And Jon Morosi will join us. We'll take a look at the Athletics player survey.
Every time you say the Guardians, I think of that dude playing third for them. How good he looks hitting second for the Jays. Holy moly. I shouldn't even say that out loud, should I? He's like if you close your eyes and said perfect,
yeah,
that's him.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. I would be okay getting Mookie, but in terms of a guy that you could bring in right now, you don't have to move anybody out of position. Yeah, Jose
breaks both sides of the plate would make Vladdy better.
Yeah. I mean, he's and not that this matters. I love watching the guy play. He's one of my favorite players to watch.
Plays hard,
plays his ass off.
Yeah, he makes
really
like $50 million too, which is crazy. You talk about steal. They are literally stealing his services. Basically, like he went anywhere else and said, "Here's a blank check." He'd get it. Like it's crazy how good.
And
he
you
is.
know what is really kind of intriguing is you have to keep in mind that at one point this organization had him and Francisco Lindor, and the way and this is an end. People aren't going to like to hear this, but you know who was in charge of the organization when they were coming up, and they did a pretty good job in terms of getting both those guys into the majors. And ultimately, the next front office came in and quite frankly made the correct call. If you're going to keep one guy over the other, I think they made the correct call. But yeah, he's Jose Ramirez
don't come around every day.
Would be the perfect fit.
Yep,
would be the perfect fit for this team. And the Guardians and the Royals are, like we said, they've really got it going on in the American League Central. 8:10 will be the first pitch tonight. Colin Ray on the mound for the Milwaukee Brewers. Jose Barrios for the Blue Jays. Mm-hmm. Good news coming after a bullpen day that went into extra innings. Good news to have Jose Barrios on the mound. Yusei Kikuchi will go in Game 2 of the series against we believe, the Brewers' top pitching prospect in Carlos Rodriguez. And Chris Bassitt will start Wednesday's game. A reminder, that is a 2:10 Eastern start on Wednesday, so there will be no Blair and Barker before the show, but we will be on with Blue Jays Talk following the show. Then the Jays have Thursday off, and Friday, the Cleveland Guardians, the aforementioned Cleveland Guardians, come to town. It'll be a Naylor family reunion.
Mm-hmm.
One would imagine at the Rogers Center. Jeff Levering is a Brewers TV and radio play-by-play voice. He joins us now on Blair and Barker. Jeff, thanks so much for joining us today. We trust that you're keeping well. My friend Mr. Barker here, who I admittedly is partial to the Brewers because they did draft him out of Virginia Tech, but he calls the Brewers, and he means this with all respect, he calls them the National League's version of the Tampa Bay Rays, and that they can basically trade away an ace or lose a bunch of guys out of their rotation, and somehow it's like whack-a-mole with pitchers, right? A bunch of other guys pop up, and, well, they just keep winning.
Yeah, I think that's right, and we've been saying that for a while, right? Because Tampa Bay, other than the slew of Tommy John surgeries that the Rays have had to deal with over the last few years, the Brewers have maintained health for the most part. Now, Brandon Woodruff is on the shelf. He's got a shoulder issue. But trading away Corbin Burns, who's now in Baltimore, is having a really fine season. They end up getting DL Hall, who's been okay, and Joey Ortiz, who might be an all-star at third base. So they've done a really good job with their trades. They've been very good at acquiring players and keeping those players underneath the hood. But you're right about whenever a pitcher comes to Milwaukee, they just have this secret sauce, and they make them thrive with whatever it is. They find one little tweak of a grip or a different arm angle or whatever it is. You see a guy who's throwing 94, and maybe the next year he's throwing 97, 98. And it's been a really good trend with Brewers pitchers over the last few years.
Jeff, the Brewers are third in Major League Baseball in stolen bases at 86. They have 7 guys with 6 or more. Is that on purpose coming into the season? Is that one of the ways that you can sort of overcome what you're not doing either offensively, which they're doing okay offensively or on the pitching side of the ball?
I think absolutely it's with intent. The Brewers have put this roster together knowing that they have a lot of team speed. And in spring training, they were running into a lot of outs. They were stealing bases and getting caught. They were trying to steal bases and getting caught. They were getting backpicked. They were thrown out going from first to third. They're trying to score from first base on a ball and gapper down the line. This is all with intent, and there were a lot of people in spring training that this is not sustainable. But you make those mistakes in spring training so that you don't make those mistakes during the regular season. I think the Brewers have been the best base running team in Major League Baseball. I know the Reds have a ton of stolen bases, and that's the Ellie De La Cruz effect. But the Brewers are running with intent. They're putting a ton of pressure on defenses. They're making defenses make a lot of mistakes. That's what makes this series really intriguing, is that the Toronto team plays outstanding team defense. Mm-hmm. Can the Brewers pressure them into making some mistakes, or can the Blue Jays withstand it? We saw it a lot in the Phillies series over the last road trip. Phillies made and converted 4 outs at home plate, and that ended up being a difference in the series when the Brewers got swept by Philadelphia. But it is definitely with intent that the Brewers are showing off the speed that they have on this roster.
Jeff, I look at the Brewers. The Major League season so far has run 74 days. They've been in first place 60 of those days. They've been in second place 13 of those days, which by my math means there's one day, and they were actually third place for one day. I thought this was going to all fall apart when Craig Counsell left.
Ooh.
Yeah, I think that's what everybody thought, too. They thought that it was all Craig and nobody else, but every manager will tell you that you're only as good as the players that are in that clubhouse. It doesn't matter what the sport is, football, basketball, baseball, hockey. A coach is only as good as the collection of players. And I think for Pat Murphy, he's letting these players be who they are. And Craig was great in his time here. He was the captain of the ship and the winningest stretch of Brewers baseball. But now he's on the north side of Chicago, and Pat Murphy has picked up right where Craig left off. I think the front office has done a really good job of surrounding Murph with some great players, first and foremost. But those guys that played in their first year in the major leagues last year are in year number 2 this year. That's a huge growth year for a lot of players. Plus, he maintained his entire coaching staff from a year ago, and they deserve a lot of credit for this great run, too.
Jeff, what should I think about Christian Yelich?
I think you should think that he's a fantastic baseball player. You never know what he's going to do on the field. He's really having a great year. He missed about 3 weeks with a back issue. He's cleaned that up. He's running the bases really well. He's pulling the ball for power. He's hitting the ball to the left. I mean, he might not be what he was in 18 and 19, hitting the ball for power, an MVP candidate. But last year, he was a very productive player in left field. Fantastic season offensively, pretty good defensively. This year, he is having an even better season offensively. Is he going to be an MVP candidate? No. But he could definitely be an all-star come the month of July this year. There's a very high probability he could be an all-star this year for the Brewers.
When we look at this Brewers team, I mean, obviously a lot of the focus on William Contreras. Talked about Christian Yelich, but Jackson Chourio has kind of intrigued me. They gave him, an 8-year contract with club options for 2032 and 2033. That's an industry record for a player without any major league experience. And they seem to be prepared, Jeff, to just kind of ride with whatever issues that presents, whatever positives there are. And you read about the Brewers, you follow them. Nobody seems to get down when he has a bad game. It seems as if they're just quite comfortable doing this with this guy.
Yeah, I mean, he's 20 years old, and there's going to be some growing pains. And last year he was in Double-A at the start of the season and kind of struggled up until about the middle part of June, which is where we are right now. So there's a track record of maybe getting off to a slow start. Now, this is a different animal, being in the big leagues for the first time in his career. He'd only played a dozen games at AAA level a year ago. So I think the organization is okay with him making some mistakes. And he's made some glaring ones in the outfield, not diving for a ball in the ninth inning with 2 outs on a little blooper, ends up tying the game, and the Brewers would end up losing in extra innings. Those are moments where Jackson is learning on the fly. And this is a guy that originally came up as an infielder. Mm-hmm. They moved him to the outfield a couple of years ago. So he's learning the position in real time. as a 20-year-old. He's dealing with failure for the first time. He's been sitting more often than not over the last 3 weeks. But it's a different perspective. He's learning from these different players, and the thing early is that he was crushing off speed pitches. You can understand that as a young kid, where 96 to 99 is going to get on you a bit. But now he's starting to square those balls up a bit more. So maybe he's learning his swing. And the Brewers are definitely okay with living with some of the results. You hide him down there in the 8 and 9 spot, and he can come up with some big hits. He's got 6 homers on the season and stealing 7 bases. So he's done a pretty good job for a 20-year-old kid.
The Brewers' pen is 6th in baseball in ERA. They have the 5th most Ks in the bullpen. They have 8 different guys with a save. Jeff, is there a 1 or 2 guys that are sort of, we got the 9th inning, I got the 8th inning, and then there's everybody else? What are those 2 guys who are sort of holding the fort down so everybody else can sort of have those 8 different guys with a save and some of the best ERAs in baseball?
Yeah, well, the Brewers have been dealing without their closer the entire year. Devin Williams got hurt in spring training, and they're hopeful that he's going to be back around the All-Star break, maybe a little bit after. But the Brewers have really pieced this thing together. The 3 lefties in the bullpen have been amazing, to say the least. With Jared Koenig, with Hobie Milner, and Brian Hudson. Hudson he's been the glue to this entire group. And then to get it to Yoel Payamps for the 7th or 8th inning, and then Trevor McGill has kind of become the closer for this group. He's got 9 of the 10 saves. Payamps has 4 and 6 attempts too. So they're cobbling it together with matchups, but definitely McGill, and then you work back from there. Those 3 lefties, and Milner, Koenig has started 4 games for the Brewers as an opener. The Brewers have used 11 starters this season too, yet they're 11 games over 500. Those are the guys that are the keys to this bullpen when you start with McGill and then work your way back.
Is there a piece they're missing? Maybe a starter, a bullpen? Perfect scenario, you get 1 piece or maybe 2 pieces. Where are they adding them at?
I think starting pitching is they have the fewest starting pitcher innings in Major League Baseball. So the bullpen has really done a ton of the heavy lifting over the course of the first 2 months plus. So if he could go out and get a starter somehow, or somebody really steps up, if hopefully Robert Gasser's not as hurt as they may think with that elbow, maybe he comes back at some point this year. That would be a big lift. The DL Hall starting, and Jacob Junis coming in and giving you some innings to start games. They need some arms at the front end of ball games so that this bullpen doesn't fizzle out by the time the dog days of August show up. Starting pitching is paramount. Now, it's a heavy ransom to pay. I think everybody knows that, but they're worth their weight in gold. There's no doubt.
Yeah. Last question for us before we let you run, Jeff. Carlos Rodriguez, I don't think it's been made official yet, possibly going to be the starter for the Brewers tomorrow. What can you tell us about him?
Well, was the co-pitcher of the year last year in the Brewers minor league system. Really good stuff. Another young kid. Again, not fully announced yet, but it sounds as if he's going to be the guy for the Brewers tomorrow night. Really, really good command from what the reports say. Just as calm a customer on the mound as you could find. Now, tomorrow might be a different animal facing a lineup like the Blue Jays run out there. The game can speed up on him pretty quick. But he's going to have an opportunity. Again, he's going to be the 12th starting pitcher. The Brewers will have their 8th Major League debut if he ends up starting tomorrow.
Wow.
So they've run through some kids. And Carlos Rodriguez is going to be number 8 next tomorrow night in game number 2.
Jeff, we're going to let you scoot. Yeah. Thanks for doing this, man.
Great
Terrific stuff. Be well.
Thank you so much. Have fun.
You got it.
Take care. That's Jeff Levering, Milwaukee Brewers TV and radio play-by-play broadcaster. So, 8 Major League debut tomorrow. 12th different starting pitcher. Kevin, we are 74 games in to the season. They're on 12 different starting pitchers.
Yeah.
This for an organization that traded away Corbin Burns.
Yeah.
And again, 6.5 games up.
Yeah, I think they're solid everywhere, right? I mentioned to Jeff about the stolen bases. That's how they put pressure on bad defenses. They sort of let the other team beat themselves by stealing the 86 bases. The 7 guys with 6 or more, that's a lot. Like, you know, you got to pay attention to a bunch of different dudes. When Jose's throwing tonight, like he's got I don't want to say quick pitch, but he's got to be aware of, you know, a weakness that the catchers have for the Jays. They ain't real good at it. I mean, they've gotten a little bit better at it, but they ain't real good at controlling the running game. You know, the Brewers are 13th in homers. They're 6th in OPS. They're 7th in triples. They're 8th in slugging. They have a combined 10th in baseball ERA. Like, they do things, right? They're solid everywhere. They play good defense. They don't beat themselves a bunch of times. Like, you got to go in there and beat them. A lot of the times they're not going to beat themselves. So
they've got it. Their home record, by the way, this year is the second best in the National League behind Philadelphia, 18-10. Philadelphia's 27-10, which is just obscene. The Brewers are – so keep that in mind. The Brewers have done this with 28 home games. They've gotten off to the start that they've gotten off to with 28 home games.
Yeah, they got a bunch of dudes, too, in their pen who throw hard. You know, what's the weakness the Jays lineup have? Is hunting the heater, right? Beating the dude to the spot with mechanics and, you know, just taking the game plan. Maybe they're overthinking it. Who knows? I mean, it sure sometimes looks that way, especially when you see guys like IKF come up and sort of play the at-bat, the bat plane according to the situation, right? You could tell he did things with his barrel with second and third trying to hit the ball at the middle, right? Stay on top of that thing. Hit the ball in the big part of the field, you know, and then when you have a situation with bases loaded where you're trying to get the ball in the air, now you want to catch it out front a little bit more, create a little bit more backspin, get a little bit more uppercut in your finish. Like, you got to be able to do that, right? And you got to not overthink it. And hopefully the Jays can make some adjustments and, you know, hopefully look at the standings and know that they're not too far back in that third wild card. Miracles happen.
This is not. Let's just say, this would not. If the Jays were to somehow, at some point in the next 2 weeks, take the lead in the wild card race, I'm not certain that's
take what lead? The first wild card?
No, the first wild
in one of the three.
Two. Yeah, they're not getting the first wild card is probably going to be Baltimore. Let's face it.
Yeah.
But
the next 19 games. The next 19 games with the schedule that they got.
I'm not certain it's a miracle anymore based on what everybody else is doing around him.
Huh.
I mean, there's a whole lot of suck in baseball right now. Hey, let's just say where it is. I mean,
here's the next 19 games. 3 against the Brewers, 3 against the Guardians, 3 against the Red Sox, 3 against the Guardians, 3 against the Red Sox, and 4 against the Yankees.
Yep.
So you got what? You got 3 series against first-place teams. 4 series if you include 2 different ones against the Guardians. 3 at home and 3 on the road. It ain't going to be easy. Like, offensively, they're going to have to do better. Like, the couple of guys in the meat of the order are going to have to do some things that they haven't been doing, right? Simplify these things, and most of these teams throw hard. Like, that's the thing. I've been saying this for 2 years now. Why are they not being able to hit the fastball consistently? Is it because they can't? Because they traded away most of the guys who, you know, destroy and hunt heaters? Or is it because they're overthinking or the information's bad? Whatever it is, clean it up the next 19 games and maybe you got a chance because the first 4 guys in that rotation is doing their thing. They're hiding what they don't do well in their pen. Yeah. Is what you sort of have to do, right? Jeff just mentioned it. If you can hide it, you got a chance.
You know, the Jays put way too much faith in George Springer and way too much faith in Alejandro Kirk. I've
maybe
said
the
this
Kirk thing's over.
They should have moved. I would have moved Kirk.
Well, I think they tried
after his first year. I think they probably did too.
I was sitting beside the scout that was there to see Kirk.
I think they probably did. They probably did too. And I think people. I would be surprised that. I mean, if you put a bunch of baseball people in a room and said, "Are you surprised that Kirk looks the way he looks now? That this is what we're seeing from him?" And they probably go, "Nope." Like, I don't think anybody would look at this and think, "Oh my God." You know, although I do know that somebody in the Jays front office told another reporter who shall remain nameless when he was asked about Teoscar versus Alejandro. The comment was, "We think that Alejandro is going to be a better hitter than Teoscar."
Wait.
That was back when they got rid of Teoscar.
Yeah.
But anyhow, so somebody clearly misread. Somebody clearly misread.
There you go. Then that might explain why the offense looks the way the offense looks.
So the Jackson Churio thing intrigues me too. giving this kid, and the Rays did this basically with Evan Longoria as well, but giving this kid a big contract.
Yeah.
He hasn't played in the majors. And I love the idea of we're just going to be prepared. We'll live with it. We'll live with the mistakes. Now, there's certain markets you can do that in. I'm not certain that would work in New York. I don't even know if it'll work here. I think it works in Milwaukee. But again, it's the Brewers' ability to make the right decision and to put faith in the right people. Willie Adames came over from Tampa.
Yeah.
And he's become a terrific player for
Yeah.
And at Tampa, there was
driving in runs.
At Tampa, there was indications that maybe he was wearing a
He
little
was saying he was having trouble seeing the ball.
Yeah, and it was just kind of. But anyhow,
yeah.
Yeah,
I think they're in the right division. I think you got to be in the right division to do certain things and trade away certain people and, change the way you go out and try and win a baseball game by putting more speed on your team. Like that makes sense, right? It'll suffer maybe, putting balls in play or getting a bunch of hits. But when you do get on base, you can beat a team by the way you run the bases that way, right? Maybe hide your rotation at times because of the way our bullpen is, right? Most teams can't have three lefties that they count on all the time out of their pen. It's just hard to do that, right?
Yeah.
With how many righties there are
but you can
in
also,
lineups.
You can
it's hard
also,
to do that.
You can also do what they're doing in a division where the Pirates are always rebuilding. The Cubs are the Cubs.
The Reds are all over
the Reds are all over the place.
No idea what you're going to get from them.
The Reds are, and St. Louis is, St. Louis probably needs a massive
blow up
rebuild.
that front office. Well, maybe not on the field.
Oh, by the way, the Cincinnati Reds, I believe they've now won 7 in a row. I don't know what to make of that team. I look at that team and I say to myself, if they could make one move, there's a lot of good.
Yeah,
there's a lot of good.
You're trying to get experience on the fly, Jeff. That's not the easiest thing to do, right? I mean, you throw that team in the American League East, it probably wouldn't look that way. So, yeah, I mean, it's intriguing to at least pay attention to.
We've got tickets to give away to see the Jays and Guardians at the Rogers Center. Jon Morosi also joins us in the next hour as well. And we're in a few minutes, we're going to take a look at the players poll run by The Athletic. But a reminder that Rogers has announced an exciting new national contest, Bring Stanley Home, to send Rogers customers and hockey fans from across Canada to the Stanley Cup Final in Edmonton. Rogers customers have the chance to win 10 VIP trips for 2 to attend Game 4 in Edmonton, which is scheduled for Saturday, June 15th. This prize also includes travel and accommodation, plus premium viewing at a game day concert featuring Shania Twain outside Rogers Place. You can visit Rogers.com/Stanley Cup to enter for your chance to win and for more details. You watching the Stanley Cup?
Not a chance. I'm McJesus.
I mean, I know you've been.
See
the guy at the Jays game with the McJesus.
You just
shirt?
Absolutely. You just don't see things like that. I mean, I'm not going to sit down and watch the entire game, but I watch that occasionally just because it's, man.
I mean, it's hard as a Winnipegger and a Winnipeg Jets fan.
But I was told, he can
hard.
only have played like a third of the game, and then the other 2/3 of the game is where they're losing it. So
I mean, it's
that's what I'm told.
And it's hard for me to overlook the parochialism and I just remember the Oilers having lived in Winnipeg, and then even worse, living in Calgary and having had to deal with the Oilers. I mean, it was just. I'm really conflicted. That's why I'm going to watch baseball.
There you go.
Jon Morosi of the MLB Network joins us. We've got an Athletic player survey. You won't want to miss that. Some good news for the Blue Jays? Some bad news for the Blue Jays? Not really. Point of fact, there's not really a lot of news for the Blue Jays, which may tell you something, but we'll get around to it. It's Blair and Barker on Sportsnet 590, The Fan, and Sportsnet. All right, this is going to be fun. We're going to go through the Athletic player survey.
You're going to get me in trouble. That's what you're going to do, aren't you?
Before we do that, we're giving you the chance to win. We've been giving you the chance to win Blue Jays tickets all season long here in Blair and Barker. All you have to do is text the correct answer to our daily baseball
get it right
trivia question to 590. Our last trivia question and answer was, after stints with the Blue Jays in 1992 and 1993, this veteran ended his career with Cleveland in 1994. The answer was Jack Morris. I forgot that Jack was Cleveland. This one, this question I nailed. I got it like that. Today's question is to win tickets to see the Jays and Guardians at Rogers Center on June 15th. This catcher had stints with both Cleveland and Toronto in the 1970s, but is known to Jays fans as one of the team's broadcasters in the 2000s. This catcher had stints with both Cleveland and Toronto in the 1970s, but is better known to Jays fans as one of the team's broadcasters in the 2000s. Text the answer to 590-590 for your shot to win. See rules at sportsnet.ca/590. You got that? You know who that is.
I got that.
That was a little easy. I wouldn't have said broadcaster. I would have.
What would you have
figured
said?
out a way. Well, that's
you gave
that's
it away.
a giveaway. It's not like they've had 1,000.
Well, we're trying to give them away. We're not trying to
that's
make
right.
it so hard that they don't
right.
get the answer right.
So this
Show
spring,
for the people, Jeff.
this spring, over 2.5 months, The Athletic interviewed more than 100 players, and they tried to split it evenly between the American and National Leagues across 18 teams, granted them anonymity to get their takes on some of the biggest and most controversial storylines in baseball. They also, and this is not a scientific poll, right?
Mm-hmm.
But they also asked players, they asked them a variety of questions. And again, this isn't scientific. So
it's an opinion,
not like
basically.
Yeah, of course it's an opinion, but it's not like they sat down and said, okay, let's make sure we got this many, this many, this many. And of course, not every player answered every question. But it's always interesting to see the results of these surveys, just because it does kind of give you a sense. It gives you a sense of where your team sort of stands when it comes to being in the forefront or the background of players' minds. Boy, I'm being really
You
nice
are
right
trying.
now.
Stop circling the wagons, dude. Say it.
I'm just saying.
Say it.
And the good news is, the good news is the Blue Jays.
There's not any good news.
Yeah, there is.
There's
The
not.
good news is the Blue Jays were not listed in any of the bad categories. The bad news is
They weren't listed.
Well, a couple of players picked
Boy, you're
them as
trying.
anyhow. We'll get there. But the fact of the matter is that, the Blue Jays were not, they were certainly not, much as we saw with that survey of front offices, they were not the
Stay
forefront.
hot.
They were not in the forefront of anybody's mind. So, but we're
Nobody's
going to run
thinking about
through
the
this.
poor
I
Blue
want to get
Jays.
some of Barker's reaction to this because he hasn't seen this yet because he can't be bothered to sign on to the link and read the damn thing. So let's start with. Well, it's true. You can't be bothered. I gave you this
that's not true.
You can't be bothered.
Ask me. I got answers for everything you're going to ask.
No, that's not it. I wanted you to know what the responses were.
The first one's
so you can
nonsense.
respond to
I'm
it.
looking at it right
All
here.
right,
It's
so
nonsense.
let's just stop. Who is the best player in baseball?
No, it doesn't say. Yeah.
Okay, this is who is the best player in baseball. Shohei Ohtani got 46% of the vote. Ronald Acuna Jr. got 26.5. Mookie got 8.8. What do you think about that?
That's nonsense. I mean, how about the unicorn that plays in New York who plays center? Who is?
Well,
I mean,
now that you
Ohtani's
asked-
not even a player. He's a hitter.
Now that you asked, I did this deliberately to annoy you. Aaron Judge actually finished tied with Mookie Betts at 8.8%.
Yeah, that's ridiculous. I mean, what are these players thinking? They'd ask pitchers
Other players
who
who
they'd
received
rather
the
not
vote.
face.
Other players received a vote. Mike Trout, 3.9.
There you go. Somebody
Harper,
never plays.
Bryce Harper, Gunnar Henderson, Jose Ramirez, Adley Rutschman, Corey Seager, and Zach Wheeler.
I'm not saying don't throw Ohtani in there, but the first pick, 46%. I mean, come on.
He's a good pitcher and a good hitter.
He's not this year. He's not a player. He's a hitter. There's a big, giant difference. You seen that dude in New York play, run the bases, walk on a field? I mean, come on.
Who is the most overrated player in baseball?
Where there's oh, man.
Jazz Chisholm Jr. Hard to argue that. I thought at one point he was going to be, he was on the cover of the MLB and all. Anthony Rendon, who it just seems people just don't like him. He's the guy that
basically said he hates baseball.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah. They give me a ton of money and I don't even like
Correa.
the sport I play.
Carlos Correa.
Yeah, there you go.
The others are Tim Anderson, Jack Flaherty, Pete Alonso, Cody Bellinger, Alex Bregman, Ellie De La Cruz, Manny Machado, Blake Snell. Alek Manoah Alek Manoah received 1 vote in this category, as did Marcus Stroman.
I'm sure that's somebody he threw a pitch at and hit,
Probably.
or
Well, yeah.
somebody in the American League East that voted for
Yeah.
him who don't like him. You know, I don't really have I don't even know how you choose that. That's very personalized. Like, you actually have to not like that person.
Yeah.
That's why you're voting.
That's basically
for
so
that.
Jazzism is not like that.
I guess, yeah.
Which team would you sign with if contracts, state taxes, and rosters were not a factor? The interesting thing here for me is Boston finishing second, because Boston never used to be a friendly place for African-American players or Latino players. It's ahead of the Dodgers.
Mm-hmm.
Atlanta, I mean, it surprises me that 12.7% was the lead figure. I mean, you can see why. You look at Atlanta. One thing that comes out, people love Alex Anthopoulos.
Absolutely.
People love.
Stand
You
in
know,
line,
you're going
can't
to
wait to
Atlanta,
play
you're
for
going to
him.
contend,
Oh.
and you're going to get paid. And if you're a young guy, you're going to get paid right away. The Red Sox intrigue me. That is way higher.
Yeah, I think that's a lot
than
of
I
hitters
thought.
are saying that, right? I mean, if
Maybe.
you want to get paid, go there.
The Dodgers, we mentioned, were third. Texas was tied with the Dodgers for third. New York Yankees, 6.9. Cubs, 6.9. San Diego, 5.8.
Yeah.
See, I'd go San Diego would be my second choice.
Well, they stink.
Philly, 4.6. Arizona,
I mean,
3.4. The Angels, 3.4. Houston, 3.4. Miami, 3.4. Cincinnati, 3.4. Tampa Bay, 2.3. Seattle, 2.3. San Francisco, 2.3.
Where's the Jays?
The Mets, 2.3. The Twins, 2.3. The Jays were in the teams also mentioned category, which means like 1 or 2 people picked them, along with Baltimore, Cleveland, Milwaukee, Pittsburgh, St. Louis, and Washington.
Nobody wants to play in St. Louis, huh?
San Francisco, I guarantee you 5-10 years ago might have been higher up, but people just they don't like the ballpark.
And things around the park, too, I think, have really...
the city has...
went to...
Yeah. I
think the New York and the Philly thing, it takes a special player to go there and be good at it.
But I also think, you look at Philadelphia last year, and I remember we had Jason Stark on. I think maybe in some ways what we saw with Trey Turner was a bit of a turn. Trey Turner did not get off to a good start in Philadelphia. And yet the Philly fans didn't get on him.
Took a Hall of Fame writer to come out and say, what are you people doing?
Yeah. But it was, well, they listened.
Yeah.
What organizations have bad reputations among players?
Oh, no.
That, I think, is our next chart, if I'm not mistaken. Surprise, Oakland. The Chicago White Sox and the Angels. No, the Angels are just a mess. Only the Angels could have had Shohei Ohtani and Mike Trout and not won anything. Oakland.
It's more about the park, I would think, and the owner.
I think,
and the owner is.
Well, that's pretty big.
Yeah. Well,
yeah.
And then they don't pay. And they don't pay you. And the White Sox are.
By the way,
who knows where they're
I haven't
going.
asked you about this yet, but that whole thing with Yusei Kikuchi and the interference.
Oh,
why would you just go down in the dugout?
Why wouldn't you go the opposite direction of the way he went? And if you got a buddy, grab him. Like, where are you going?
I mean,
you saw Gausman standing there, grab him. Get out of the way.
They have,
stop looking up.
Everybody's talking about, well, that's unique to Oakland. That's an Oakland thing. No, that's a Kikuchi thing. Get your ass down in the dugout. And the other thing is, you got 150,000 hitting coaches. Shouldn't one of? I mean, maybe one of them can grab a guy.
It's just lined with khakis
Good
on
Lord.
that top step. Somebody grab him. Grab him.
That's like that. Listen, that dugout is as crowded as the one
awful.
line coming from Union Station out here at rush
it's
hour.
awful. I mean, that's how you do it in the minor leagues. You sit on coolers.
Anyhow,
That's what it's
the other organizations that had a bad reputation. The Rockies,
I'm sure if they were there another day, they would outline the
Rockies at 10%.
I
Mets
like
at 8,
the Rockies.
The Mets at 8. You just like the city. The
Absolutely.
Rockies suck. The Mets at 8%. Pirates at 5. Miami at 4. Tampa Bay at 4. San Diego at 3. Yankees at 2. Washington at 2. Kansas City at 2.
How
the
is
Jays,
San Diego there? They pay tons of money, and it's beautiful.
I think maybe they pay
don't like
tons
the
of
front
money and
office?
it's beautiful, and the team doesn't win. That could be.
Wow.
Again, this is
That's
bad
that's-
reputations among players.
That's more about
Toronto
the
is
front
not
office, bro.
Toronto doesn't get mentioned as having a bad reputation amongst players. So
Are they even mentioned in any of these?
Yeah, I just said that they
Well,
were
you
mentioned.
said it quietly.
I
didn't hear
they
you.
got to vote for the team you would sign with if contracts, state
One
taxes,
vote.
and rosters were not a factor.
How do you get one vote when you got like the 7th highest payroll in
I
baseball?
mean, that doesn't matter. It's where would you want to sign? Milwaukee got one vote. St. Louis got one. Baltimore, the second best team in the American League, got one vote. And it doesn't matter. You're asking guys where they would like to sign. This is interesting here. Players were asked to evaluate this statement. Remember when Anthony Rendon said the season is too long? 68% of the players disagreed with him that it's too long. I agree with him. I think the season should be 154 games and ended earlier. I just don't think. I think it's as it is right now. You're pushing the World Series into November. Dumb. Start spring training later. Get the season over with. Let's have the season done by the middle of October. Boom. Gone. Forget it. No more November.
Oh, you solved it. You've solved it. Every owner of baseball has officially put you on the list. The bad list.
No.
The not getting a Christmas card list. Yeah.
Putting aside their stats and going solely on vibes, which player do you most want in your team? This is a hockey one. So, like, good vibes.
Well, Vladdy's getting the one at the Blue Jays.
What they're saying is, who's a good guy?
Yeah, Vladdy.
Who's the goodest of the good guys?
Oh, I love Vladdy.
Vladdy's the only guy, and the only Blue Jay that got a vote. He got one vote.
Does it say one vote?
Yes, it says the players received one vote. I mean, Luis Arraez, Xander Bogaerts, there are a ton of guys. Freddie Freeman only got one vote. Tyler Glasnow.
Yeah.
Now, the guys that did, again,
Freddie
this is on
fun.
vibes.
Yeah, it's like fun.
Mookie,
The fun factor, you know.
Mookie Betts was 1. Shohei Ohtani was 2. Ronald Acuna was 3. Bryce Harper was 4. Aaron Judge was 4. Kyle Schwarber was 5. Was tied for 4th, pardon me. Tied for 3rd, actually. Mike Trout, Lance Lynn, Marcus Semien, Willie Adames, Jose Altuve, Orlando Arcia, Garrett Cole, Kike Hernandez, Francisco Lindor, and Garrett Stubbs.
I don't know what the criteria is for picking
That's a guy.
It's like you like that player. It's not, Marcus Semien.
I would imagine
fun,
what this means is who has got a good reputation around the game.
Yeah, a hard player. You want him on your team. That thing. Well, yeah. They said it wrong.
No, they didn't.
Yeah, if you'd have said it that way, then we would agree with all those things. But the ooze and fun and leading the fun party, that's fun. Like that's half the names ain't fun.
This is good because this is about you and Caleb and Siddle.
Uh-oh.
What is the most irritating criticism of the current game coming from former players?
Khakis.
No.
Is there a khaki?
Celebrations. We're having too much fun. The bat flips.
That's
Complaining
Caleb.
about pimping home runs. Overlooking the current game's degree of difficulty. They think that you guys overlook the current degree of difficulty in the game. Too many strikeouts. They had 3 guys in the league who threw 95. Now the first guy in from the bullpen throws 100.
Sounds like a bunch of whining to
They
me.
think that you guys don't think they're tough enough.
Who's you guys?
You guys have former
Who's
players. This is just former players. What is the most
I
irritating
take offense to all
criticism
this.
of the current? Well, that's why
Because
I
none
read
of
it.
this is true.
Well, that's why I read it. The former players. Should MLB shut down mid-season so players can participate in the 2028 Summer Olympics in Los Angeles? That's the stupidest idea in the history of ideas.
I'm with you on that.
And 53% of the players say don't bother. 46% say that they should shut it down.
What?
Yeah.
Must be pitchers
It's a
voting.
world- no,
The
it's a world-
46%
It's a
must be
world-
pitchers.
it's everybody likes the World Baseball
because they play
Classic.
once a week.
It's the World Baseball Classic. That's the same thing. People and the Olympics are going to be in Los Angeles.
I think instead of having it before the season started, it would be
No, I
better
think
off if they had it in the middle of the
there's-
season. Maybe that's what they're talking about.
No, what they're talking about is a bunch of dudes like the idea of winning Olympic medals. They really do. But the majority doesn't. And again, it's not going to happen because
the majority's
owners aren't
trying to
gonna-
get paid.
owners aren't
There's
gonna
probably
shut-
the people that's
owners
already
aren't
been
gonna
paid.
Shut down the season.
No.
Owners aren't going to shut down the season.
I still can't get over that last question. They basically threw me under the bus. That I'm a grouchy old person who don't like anything
and
about
it was
baseball.
only you.
Yeah,
It was none of the other
that's all I
former
heard.
players.
Yeah,
Well,
I mean,
live and learn. I told you to read the damn thing.
I mean,
This will make you a better person. I'm
really?
trying to make you a better person.
You just bust through me like 18 times.
Well, there you go. Have analytics helped your career, hurt your career, or made no difference to your career? What do you think? How do you think the overwhelming...
Give me the three. Give me the three again.
Helped your career,
Yeah.
hurt your career,
Yeah.
or made no difference?
The C. I'm going to say it's A or C.
No, 8.6%. Yes, 76% of the players said analytics have helped their career.
I mean, they're still playing.
10.8% said it made no difference. Both helped and hurt was 8.6%. Hurt was 3.2%. So there you go. The khakis, you owe the khakis. And I'd like you to apologize to khakis right
It's
now.
not going to happen.
Apologize.
No, it's not going to happen.
Apologize to khakis. Players like the khakis.
What players?
Players like
The ones
it.
that already made a ton of money? That's the
76
people that are voting for that.
76% said they helped.
Yeah. Ask the Jays lineup
76.
how that's going.
I'm just reading the data.
I'm just telling you.
I'm just reading
Like
the
it's
data.
to each his own.
Have you ever seen or heard
76%.
of a player being put on the injured list when they weren't injured enough? 65% said yeah. Listen, you know,
I mean,
if you
look
asked,
over there.
Yeah,
IL.
exactly. I would say if you asked writers, 130% of the writers would. I know a guy who was on the IL and celebrated by going out dancing that night because I saw him at the bar. He was on the IL with a knee injury. I'm not going to say who.
Oh, he didn't.
Well, I saw it.
He was dancing.
He was dancing.
Oh yeah, I've seen that too a lot.
He was on the IL with a knee injury.
Yeah, I saw a guy one time went on the IL smoking a cigar. I asked him why you smoking that, and he's like, "Yeah, I'm up here the week."
What else there? Was the Dodgers offseason spending good for the game? 91% of the players said, of course it was. 100% of the players on the Dodgers said it was. Are you in favor or opposed to? Are you in favor of or opposed to MLB adopting the salary cap and floor system used in other major sports
Never
leagues?
going to happen.
71% say don't give us either of them. 1% or 14.8% said floor, no cap. 13.5% said they're in favor of both. I don't know why, if you were a professional athlete, you'd want a salary cap.
They're making them numbers up.
But no, they're not.
13.5% said they don't care.
13.5% said they were in favor of both.
The floor would make a little bit of sense. The other part of it, absolutely not.
So there you go. That's just it.
Because if I got tons of money, how dare you tell me how I'm going to spend it or how much I'm going to spend?
I'm just saying.
Make more money if you don't like it.
I'm just saying.
You threw me under the bus with two of those questions.
Just one.
With the khakis, saying I need to apologize.
Well, you do.
Apologize
because
for what?
Clearly the players believe analytics helped them. I've been saying that all along.
You have?
I have.
Oh, yeah. How many Jays do you think have said that offensively?
Oh, I'm
Pitching
sure.
wise, I mean, they're standing in line to get that information.
I'm sure Davis
Oh,
Schneider.
they're standing in line. Davis Schneider? That had nothing to do with the mechanical changes he's made.
I'm sure Spencer Horwitz.
Or the short and quick swing. I mean, the only reason Spencer is here is because they don't got anybody else in, and we basically have forced him in it.
Their analytics told them that he was there.
Yeah. 370 hitter in the minor leagues. How dare you leave him there?
You really need to move beyond it, Kevin. I think you need to embrace your inner khaki. So there you go.
I do. Yeah, my swing speed, I'm up to date on it.
There you go.
I'm buying in that the best hitter the Jays have below average swing speed.
Yeah. Luis Arias is very slow.
I bet boy he gets more hits than anybody ever.
That's what I'm saying.
On earth. Just beat him to the spot. How do you do it?
I can't believe you. I can't believe you're upset about the criticism from players, the former players.
Yeah, because they have no idea what they're talking about. They that old players. They basically lumped every former player
pretty much
into the same group.
That's
how it gets even worse for them. So now every time that they do something that we don't like, former players. It's fair game. You bust through us.
I do. We did have. We've had analysts before the current crop of analysts, who I happen to think, by the way, are extremely fair. But we had analysts before you guys, and we used to have players.
Again.
We used to have players come on, and they would rip them for forgetting how hard the game was.
Yeah, that's. If anybody's ever listened to me, I say simplify that thing till no end.
And you also say round thing with a round
they've never
thing.
thrown harder.
Yeah.
Look for one pitch. If nobody else can hit that dude's split finger, why the heck would good old number one ever try and look for it?
I don't think that they were talking
They
about
were looking
you
right
in
at
the
me.
poll.
They were. It was like
I pretty much.
They were. That's why you slowed down when you read that question. You were very specific on how you were reading that question, and you were looking right at me when you read it. I didn't appreciate that.
Well, you're the only.
That survey absolutely. Three-quarters of that survey was wrong. Players don't know what the heck they're talking about. Yeah, the Ohtani one. That's. Okay. I could come up with 5 different players that I would have picked before that.
All right.
What's the second one? We can go down the list here of things that were.
We have a little time here. Let me call it up again. And we won't bother with like the ones they want to go to the Olympics or that.
That's silly. There's no money in that. Way overpay me. And they wouldn't even ask me anyway.
Well, the Olympics.
So it's a small group. It's a small
shut.
group that would have got to go to that anyway. It's the superstars. Do the superstars want to go to that? If I'm making all that money, why would I do that when I'm trying to win a World Series on a good team?
Maybe guys like the idea of winning Olympic medals and playing for their country. Maybe they're not all driven by money. Maybe they're playing it for the love of the game, Kevin Barker. It is a kid's game. It's a kid's game, damn it.
Do you talk every day for the love of talk?
No. I talk every day for the love of money. Okay, so who's the best player in baseball? You don't like Shohei
Judge.
Ohtani. You think Judge.
Mookie Betts.
You're in the minority.
Yeah, they're crazy.
See,
Ohtani, it really.
Well,
come
let me
on.
ask you this: Are you surprised?
He puts fannies in the seats.
Are you surprised that Ronald Acuna Jr. was as high as he was? He was second.
No, I think when he's on the field, you could argue that.
Okay,
not second, but you could argue he's in the top 5.
If you're asking me, honestly,
that I think is because of that one where everybody wants to go is Atlanta. The players now are paying attention to the Braves.
I would.
They see him a lot, right, and what he does.
You're asking. I mean, for me, Mookie and Judge would be my 1 and 2.
Yeah,
I'd have a hard time splitting.
People could argue that Soto is a better player right now than Ohtani. Ohtani's just a hitter. Big difference. Like there's other choices, Jeff. I'm not saying Ohtani's not great, and he's must watch because he is.
You know what is? It's amazing how Mike Trout still gets so much love because he's never available.
Never.
I listen. It's not his fault he's hurt, but he's hurt.
It's like Luis Robert Jr., who they're trying to trade for the White Sox. The dude never plays.
Most overrated player in baseball. I mean, that's Alex Bregman, pretty high up in that list. Ellie De La Cruz, I don't get. To me, that's probably just jealousy in the players.
I think
Jazz
that's
Chisholm
offensively.
Jr. I mean, Jazz Chisholm Jr.
Well, he talks a lot. I think
talks a lot. He was turned into a, and you know, I credit to him. He cashed in on being a really likable, colorful player. I mean, he really did. But I also think that Jazz Chisholm Jr. was really hurt by the fact that the Marlins just
have went away.
Anthony Rendon is just.
Oh, I mean, he ran his mouth. I mean, when he speaks,
Carlos Correa, Jack Flaherty.
Correa's hated because of the Astros stuff, and he was the spokesman for that.
Yeah, that's a good point.
That's why. Like people get tired of hearing that. Fans don't like you either love the Astros or you hate them. There ain't no on the fence.
I'm not
love
going
me
to
some
ask
Tucker.
you the vibes question. Who you'd like to have in your team because it would make you feel better.
I do need that. I do. Every once in a while, I need a hug.
You do.
From a very nice player.
Which team would you sign with if contracts, state taxes, and rosters were not a factor? Yeah, again, the big surprise to me is the fact that the Red Sox are that high. The Red Sox Cubs would be in the very bottom of my list along with the Angels. I'd rather play for the Marlins than the Cubs.
I think it's a collection of everything, right? If you're an offensive player, if you're a pitcher, does the ball carry there? How's the fans treat you when it's going bad? How much do they pay? How's the owner? You know, how involved is he? Does he? Is he like Oakland's owner? Like, there's a lot there.
Mets have a pretty bad reputation. That of all the. Like you'd expect the Athletics, the White Sox, and the Angels to have a bad reputation.
Yeah, I think
you'd expect the Rockies to just because they're a garbage team. But the Mets,
I think the Mets owner is trying to bully like winning a World Series, which is not the easiest thing to accomplish. And I like it that you didn't read the one that made my feelings hurt.
Colorado.
No.
What?
The question about, they picked on the former player.
Yeah.
I take pride in me trying to
don't read too much
occasionally being on the fence when it comes to this game is hard, unless you're a $25 million right fielder.
Don't read too much. Don't
And then,
read too much into it.
it's you make money, you make money. That's why they pay you tons of it, because you're supposed to be better at it for most of the time than other people.
Jon Morosi of the MLB Network will join us
You did
next.
good,
We'll
Jeff.
talk.
You did good.
I did good. I got you upset. We'll talk
Not
about. I want to talk to John about the London series between the Phillies
I
and the
thought
Mets.
that was good.
It was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And we're also going to talk about why there are so many steaming piles of teams in Major League Baseball this year. 19.
Cheaper to bring up them
It's under
baby players,
500.
man. That's what it is for
Blair and
organizations.
Barker.
Bring them up.
It's Blair and Barker. Barker, I still like you.
That's not true. You're
I
lying.
do like you.
I get paid to be
You're
on
my
this show.
favorite
I
former
get paid
player.
to like you, Jeff.
You're my favorite former player not named Buck Martinez. It's Blair and Barker on
Oh,
Sportsnet,
boy.
590 The Fan and Sportsnet.
I do not believe. I do not believe what you just told me.
True story. I saw it on the internet. It can't be wrong.
Oh, it's got to be right.
This is the Jays lineup for tonight's game against the Milwaukee Brewers, 8:10 first pitch.
Sounds like a winner. Oh wait, you haven't read it yet. Go ahead, Jeff. Sorry.
We'll be doing Blue Jays talk following the game, too.
Huh.
The lineup is as follows. Davis Schneider in left field. Spencer Horwitz at second base. So let's see. You got a $235 million payroll, and
Be
your
nice.
top two hitters
At
are
least they're
earning
doing
about
something, Jeff.
$1.2 million combined. Anyhow. Yeah, I know. I'm just pointing it out. Vladdy Jr. is hitting third at first base. Bo Bichette in the cleanup spot. Daniel Vogelbach still here, DHing. George Springer in right field. Dalton Varsho in center. Isaiah Kiner-Falefa at third base. Alejandro Kirk behind the plate. Jose Brios in the mound.
Yeah.
Find you someone who loves you the way the Jays love him, some Daniel Vogelbach.
They love it.
Let's bring in
Where's Joey
John.
Votto at?
Let's bring in Jon Morosi of the MLB Network.
There he is.
Hey, look at you.
Look how nice he looks.
He does look nice.
He does.
Got
Sharp.
his kids' drawings. In
I
it.
know.
You need to upgrade
So
your.
cool.
You need to upgrade your bookshelf a little bit, but that's okay. I think I keep telling you I'm going to send you a copy of my book, but they all sold out, so I can't find one.
Really?
And that's a great problem to have, Jeff.
Yeah.
There is a space on this
Yeah.
bookshelf waiting for Jeff Blair's masterpiece.
Jeff's
any day.
lying.
It's also a lie.
No.
You get to a certain point where they destroy books that aren't sold. So anyhow, there you go. So hey, Morosi, why are there so many stinky baseball teams right now? There's like 19 teams under 500. I mean, the entire National League is basically under 500 with the exception of 5 teams. What's going on?
It's the story of the haves and have-nots, Jeff. And I think that we probably this year, more than any other year in which I can recall covering, we are dealing with the result of a lot of people saying for many years that embracing the rebuild is the way to go. And that when in doubt, rebuild. And we're seeing some teams that truly in this moment should rebuild and are in the process of doing so. I'm speaking about the Chicago White Sox. The Miami Marlins are in a very interesting spot because they were a playoff team last year, and yet now they're in a full-on rebuild, it appears. So I do think, Jeff and Kevin, there's such a talk right now around the game about draft picks and the value of picks and the value of prospects. I think owners look at that and see a certain currency, for better or worse, in being high in the rankings for your farm system. And that has become, in a strange way, its own form of achievement in this sport, to where you can improve your farm system. And that is one form of doing your job well. But we know this. Championships are won by those teams that truly go for it. And yet, if I may speak on one point about one maybe positive point in the column of a team that sees the wisdom of being even somewhat mediocre, look at how many games the Diamondbacks won last year and they made it to the World Series.
Yeah.
And so I am saying in a lot of ways, I would love to see more teams go for it. And yet I can almost hear the counterpoint already being made, which is, and yet the Diamondbacks. How do you explain the Diamondbacks? And the reality is the current system of the game, guys, rewards teams that stay just around 500, just enough, like a certain team based in Toronto, that if the right planets align in the postseason, can go on a pretty nice run.
You know, it's strange. I remember that we used to say the worst place to be in baseball is in the middle. And now everybody's in the middle, basically, with the exception of 6 teams. Everybody's in the middle.
Exactly right. You're exactly right. You could not have said that any better than you just did, Jeff. And that is where the rewards of the current system are. And I think for that reason, the teams that right now are clearly sellers, the White Sox are clearly a seller. The Marlins, you would have to say, are clearly a seller. The Angels, especially, Trout's on the injured list. Shohei is long gone. They should be and probably will be a seller. But the number of teams that are obvious and apparent sellers are very few, which certainly advantages them from the perspective of what the market dynamics are. And on the flip side, the conversation surrounding the Jays, it's almost impossible at this point for them to rationalize being big sellers. You're 2 games out of the playoff spot. It seems very difficult. That the current system, Jeff and Kevin, makes it really hard on you to decide to sell if you're close to the middle, which is where the Jays are, where the Tigers are, where a whole lot of ball clubs are right now.
Flip it on its other end, JP. Who is the best 2 teams in baseball now that the Braves are going through what they're going through and what the Astros are doing? Who, in your mind, is the best 2 teams in baseball today?
I would say in the National League, it's the Phillies. I know they lost a tough one yesterday in London, but they're a special team. Look at that rotation, Kevin.
Oh.
Look at how good, and it's not even necessarily just the name brand guys the last several years in free agency like a Wheeler and a Nola. Look at Ranger Suarez's numbers. Look at Sanchez's numbers. Yeah. This is an elite, one of the best rotations we have ever seen in the wild card era. They're that good right now. And so I think they, to me, are the class of the NL. Yes, even ahead of the Dodgers. And then in the American League, there's a bit of an asterisk here depending on Juan Soto's health. But I've seen a whole lot of the Yankees this year up close. That's a special team. And we have not even seen Garrett Cole throw a pitch. So for all these reasons, I would say the best team I've seen in the AL is the Yankees. The best team I've seen in the NL is the Phillies. But, of course, the Orioles, the Dodgers, and the team the Jays are contending with now, the Brewers, I think they all have their own claims to being pretty tough teams right now.
Yeah, that's a great point about the Yankees. To me, Luis Gil has kind of become what I thought Luis Severino. Well, Luis Severino was that at one point until he started getting hurt. But I used to go into every year thinking, man, if that guy can stay healthy, he could be the most important. He could be the most important person on that team. And now, if Garrett Cole comes back, based on what we've seen from Luis Gil so far, I mean, his emergence to me, Soto's great, Judge is great. Volpe's had that run, all that stuff. But this guy's emergence, I think, is the thing that might ultimately put them over the top.
You're exactly right, Jeff. And I go back to a conversation early in the year. We had a showcase broadcast on MLB Network in Baltimore, Yankees-Orioles, and Gil pitched that game. And afterward, I asked Jose Trevino, the catcher, what he thought about the action on Gil's pitches. And Jose said to me, people say, and I agree, that his fastball reminds me of someone else we have here with the Yankees. And I said, you mean Garrett Cole? He said, yeah. So it's fascinating, Jeff and Kevin, when you look at that's a very smart catcher, one of the smartest guys we've got in the game in terms of understanding how to handle pitchers and call pitches. Jose Trevino said that to me. And then if you look at the numbers and the pitch value and the analytics, they basically say the same thing, that Gil's fastball behaves like Cole's fastball. And even, this is the scary thing for the rest of the American League. If you compare run value and velocity and expected slug and all these different numbers on it, it's actually better than what Cole's fastball was last year when he won the Cy Young. He's that good. And it's now, it's not just a couple good starts. It's basically coming up on half a season. And probably the biggest truth-telling element of all this, guys, is that Garrett Cole had a rehab start over the weekend, and he was asked about, hey, what's your timeline? Is your next start going to be in the big leagues? And Garrett, and I'm paraphrasing here, basically said, have you seen how good we're playing right now in the big leagues? Like, I don't have to rush back.
Yeah.
We've got a good team right now. And I think that to me, certainly Garrett wants to be in the big leagues, obviously, but he also realizes that, hey, they're in rhythm right now. The last thing we need is for me to jump in there before I'm really ready to go and disrupt the rhythm. They're really doing well. And that's also credit to Stroman, Rodon, others that have stepped forward. But Luis Gil, to me, it's not even a question if he's going to be in the All-Star game. It's a question of how early he pitches in the game. He's there for me, without a doubt, a month from now.
JP, yeah. What did we learn by the Dodgers going to Yankee Stadium and winning 2 out of 3? Did we learn anything, or is it just series in the season and you take it and sort of you run with it, whether you've lost 2 out of 3 or you won 2 out of 3.
We learned how important Teoscar Hernandez is to the Dodgers.
Hey, I didn't want to say it.
And I know that there may be some Jays fans that don't want to hear that, but my friends, that is the truth. If you look at it, I believe he was just named a moment ago the National League Player of the Week. It's true.
He might,
It's
you know
true.
what? He might fit someplace in the AL East. I mean, I don't want to go out on a limb here, but he might.
There's a team, Jeff, that may actually use some production in right field and DH. Can you think of a team that may fit that description? No, I'll say this. He is obviously a great hitter. He's really popular in that clubhouse. I've covered the Dodgers a couple times this season. He's really well liked there, and he's in a really, really good situation. Because if you're batting fifth, which he does for the most part, and you're behind Betts, Ohtani, Freeman, Smith, you're going to have guys on the bases all the time. And so, again, yes, like 98% of this is him being a great hitter, and 2% is he's often the right guy in the right place at the right time. And in fairness to him, he knew that when he signed there. This is a good place to win. I've got a good situation to drive in a ton of runs. And the thing I've said about him before, and it was funny, actually, I talked recently about him a couple days ago too. His numbers right now are not that far off of what he did for the Jays in 2021. So for people maybe nationally who haven't followed his career carefully, they're like, where did he come from? It's like, he did this 3 years ago in Toronto, basically the same numbers. So he's just doing it. And again, that 2021 Jays lineup was probably the best of this era. And this Dodger lineup right now, with the guys that he's with and how well he's driving in runs, it's this pretty special combination.
We saw a report, kind of a strange report over the weekend about how the Chicago Cubs had private discussions about trading for Vladimir Guerrero Jr., which, of course, now they're not private discussions. They've been out there. Question for you, John. How much do you think Vladdy's trade value, and I'm not going to go down the road of whether or not they're going to trade him, but do you think his trade value has been impacted by his resurgence? Or do you think he's one of those, Kevin and I talk about this all the time, do you think he's one of those players that even if he didn't have a resurgence, teams are still going to be interested in him because, man, if we could get our hands on this guy, we can unlock that. Yeah. We can unlock that potential.
I think there's always been a baseline of interest in Vlad in the industry, curiosity about him. You hear scouts talking about him a lot in different markets, different ballparks, about the curiosity. To your point about if we got him, what could we do with him? But there's no question that his numbers in the last month have really boosted what his trade value would be. And I'll be honest, as I watch Vlad's year and his numbers move upward, and the Jays are right there, a couple games out of a playoff spot, it's going to be a tough decision, because I do think that the Jays, again, year one of the new renovations of the ballpark, you've already leveraged so much with this payroll to this team and going for it. I think they will err if it's close. They will err on the side of keeping him and keeping Bo. I think for them to trade him, in all honesty, it would have to be a clear slam dunk. He's playing great. We're playing poorly. We've got no credible path to making it into a playoff berth, and that's the scenario in which they would trade him. And as a quick parenthetical, Jeff, the type of team that you would consider trading him to is a team like the Cubs. Yeah. National League, out of the league in the division, and one of the better farm systems in the sport. That's the kind of scenario. And by the way, they need a first baseman. They've sort of been half measures. Is Bellinger a guy there? Matt Mervis had a moment. Wisdom, where does he play? So that's exactly the kind of team to whom it would make sense to trade him. I don't believe it's going to happen. I'll be very clear about that. But when you mention that team and you consider their farm system, guys, this is just the kind of scenario that with 50 days or so before the deadline, that the three of us could keep checking back a week every 10 days or so to say, hey, more or less possible. And it is a very valid question, the right kind of a team. I just think the Jays, especially they're 9-4 since that heartbreaking walk-off loss in Detroit, they've played well enough. And I think as long as this team plays well enough, then they have put themselves in that vast middle ground of Major League Baseball to where selling while it might be the logical and objectively correct thing to do, I just think it's, from a fan standpoint, a little bit too impractical still for now.
JP, up and down at bats for Bo Bichette. What do you think that would do to the market for him?
Well, I think so to me, it's an interesting case because Bo has had, I think, certainly the high end of leading the league in hits. And there's also that possibility of, would he play second base for my team?
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
I don't think we will ever see him play, and I always caution this, but I don't think that we will see him play a position that's not shortstop for the Blue Jays between now and the end of 2025. I think he is, as long as he's a Blue Jay, he's a shortstop. Mm-hmm. But, for example, let's just take, or theoretically, a team like the Dodgers. I don't think it's going to happen, but a big-time National League team with a big-time payroll and a really good farm system to say, hey, especially there, could we move Mookie Betts back to second and then have Bo play short? That's an interesting possibility. There are those teams out there. It's not a big list. It's a small list. And again, I think that the ramifications of trading both of them at this moment in time are too great for the Jays to walk down that path. But I agree, it's been something of a hot and cold type of a first half. You'd have to be really sure about the team, destination, et cetera. And that team would have to know by looking at his swings, and maybe he's got a prior relationship with a hitting coach or a teammate there, depending on the ball club. You'd have to feel pretty confident that you're going to be able to get that league-leading hitter type bat back before you go down that road. It's a fascinating discussion, Kevin.
Yep.
I don't think the Jays are there yet, but there's a lot of time between now and July 30th.
Absolutely.
What I find really interesting about Bo is he has improved so much defensively compared to where he was 3 or 4 years ago. That the discussion, had he not improved, the discussion would be, let's get Bo and move him to another position. What I've kind of determined, and what I've heard from other people, is he is good enough now, or he's not in the right position. He is an okay defender to the point where, if you had an older shortstop, you might bring Bo in, have Bo play second, and ask your shortstop to move, the pre-existing shortstop to move to another position, maybe second base, which does say a lot about the improvement in his defense. There are people out there who don't view him as a guy who, quote, has to make a positional switch in order to help their team.
You're exactly right, Jeff. It's an excellent point. I know how much pride Bo took in his defense getting ready for this season, positionally, also just the drill work that he puts in. But you mentioned the team, and again, we chatted about the Dodgers a moment ago. I still have a hard time believing that would ever happen. But if you just look at it in isolation, he might be right now a more complete defender at shortstop than Mookie Betts. And I didn't know that I would say that when this season began. You also look at the Cubs. We talked about them before, too. Swanson has been way up and down. And I don't really know the ramifications there. Obviously, Dansby's got a long-term deal. I'd have a hard time, again, expecting the Cubs to move Dansby to second or somewhere else. But that's a team that you think about. Big market, big budget, National League team where the Jays might feel comfortable with that type of idea. But it almost gets back, Jeff, to the same thing that you opened up this conversation with, which is, how many teams truly know that they are way all in here and would give up elite prospects to bring in a shortstop? Well, just you can think about the teams that are all in, basically maybe a half a dozen. Well, the Orioles, no, they got Henderson. The Yankees, no, they've got Volpe. You start going down the list, there's just not that many teams. The Guardians love their very inexpensive, very effective infield that they've got. So not a ton of teams that might fit that description. Maybe the Mariners, but I would be somewhat surprised with them as well.
John, last question before we let you run. The London series was, we watched the game on TV. Awesome. I thought it was great. It was an artistic hit. Fans seemed to love it. Do you think MLB has got its sights on elsewhere in Europe to play a game? Because this was such a fascinating week. And because, you would know this. While MLB was in London, they were playing T20 cricket in Nassau County. It was like one of those, India and Pakistan were playing in Nassau County. It was one of those sort of futuristic sports
Through the
weekends.
looking glass, if you will.
Exactly.
Right?
But are there other cities that we may see MLB try to have a couple of games in Europe in particular?
Well, they've talked about Paris before. There were some complexities where it looks like that reportedly may not happen any longer for next year, but that has been discussed. There have been visits to Berlin. Of course, we have a Berlin-born player in the major leagues now, and Max Kepler. He's got an amazing story. His parents, both ballet dancers. His dad's Polish. His mom's from Texas. They met at the Berlin Ballet. Amazing story. So I do think that in the right circumstance, I think what makes London so great is they've got the facility. I think the common language certainly helps from a marketing perspective. But you do look around Europe. We saw the Czech Republic put together a really impressive run at the World Baseball Classic. That's a growing baseball culture. For obvious reasons, we've talked about Italy in the past. I know that, again, the question comes to, if you don't have a baseball-specific stadium, and probably the best baseball stadium in Europe is actually in the Netherlands, right close to Schiphol Airport in Hoofddorp, Netherlands. So like that's the best. It equates probably to a AA stadium. So I think from a sort of standpoint of travel logistics, that would make a lot of sense. Italy, they've tried, but as you know, Jeff, construction in my homeland does not necessarily go all that efficiently. And when they've looked at different site visits, this is a serious thing. They've looked at this. Hey, we could build this out, and it's unfortunately, ruins are near here. You'd have to be very careful. So after a certain amount of time, logistically, Italy didn't really do them any favors, I think. So, but there are other spots in Europe where MLB would like to go. London certainly has been a great success, and I will certainly do my best, Jeff and Kevin, to get Italy on the map just as soon as we work on figuring out who's going to score some goals for Italy at the Euro.
Nice.
That's my foremost concern. But once that's over, I'll circle back to you, okay?
Awesome.
You may need a while to figure that out, my friend.
Scamacca, Raspadori, Chiesa, somebody, Barella from the midfield, somebody's got to score the goals.
Barella, well, they do have Donnarumma, so at least they know that they'll be strong defensively. But the Italians are always going to be strong defensively. Thanks for this, John. Be
Thanks,
well.
buddy. See ya.
Il migliore portiere del mondo. Best goalie.
That's what we say at the Blair household all the time. Take care. Arrivederci. No, that's wrong. Ciao. Anyhow. Jon Morosi of the MLB Network joining us.
More the merrier.
We got to get.
I love it.
We got to get you doing some Euro Cup, Euro soccer picks.
No chance.
Do you remember when you used to do Bundesliga picks?
That was younger in my career when I was forced to do that.
Established. That was before you were established.
Yeah, it was the old Blairski going, hey, look, how about you try this?
Anyhow,
I'm good.
8:10 is the first pitch tonight. Jose Barrios against Colin Ray, and we'll be on with Blue Jays talk following the game on the Sportsnet radio network. Going to be a winning edition? 500 edition?
If Barrios goes 8, throws a lot of strike ones, and has consistent spin of the slurve, absolutely. If he doesn't.
That's it for us. Enjoy the baseball. We'll be back tomorrow.